Hello everyone, Kurt Holford here, and welcome back to another episode from Holford Labs. Today I'm going to be showcasing the footage that I talked about in a previous episode, which was revolving around utilizing various types of swords against different types of clothing articles. For the purpose of this video here, there are two types of clothing I brought for this experiment, just to start off with. And mind you, this is just the first of hopefully many that I'm going to be doing in a series that I'm calling Sword Caliber, which is me exploring the concept that potentially swords were much like modern day firearms, essentially more along the lines of having different types of calibers for different kinds of usages. Again, we don't have any evidence of this historically, at least I don't, and if there's people out there that do, please leave a comment below on that. But as far as one of the things I'm wondering about here is because you have various levels of type of clothing, armor, and other things like that. We're looking at different kinds of facets that we may be having to explore, which having different types of swords may have helped us in the past combat against different types of armor considerations. And that's what this is really looking at. The two types of jackets that I'm wearing, that I'm using in this is, one is an old SPES heavy jacket that I've had that is still surviving. Well, it's not surviving so much anymore after this experiment, but it is an old SPES jacket that I've utilized for HEMA tournaments as well as sparring and whatnot. And it's just a SPES heavy jacket here. I think it's got one layer of linen inside, and it's got an outer fabric out there as well. And then there's some padding stuffing in there as well for obviously for impact damage. The other one that I'm going to be using here is actually a recreation made by Charles Lin, who had made a 31 layer padded arming jacket that was essentially based off of his research that he does for himself within the realms of areas that he's looking at. And the full details, his reports that he had put out there is going to be linked in the description as well here. So if you want to check that out and see what it's about, highly check it out. Fascinating read, and gives a little bit of insight about what type of equipments and ideas that may be out there as well. And those are the two types of things we're going to be working against here. In this video as well, I have a guest practitioner, fellow practitioner within my Fiore group, Aaron Brandt, who will also be assisting in the cutting. He'll be utilizing his personal sword and to be able to perform certain actions against this, which will be the whole system of it all. So with that being the case here, again, just want a quick introduction about what this all is, and then we're going to get into it. So let's roll the film. It's all the same spot. This is a previous cut from another slicing concept. But again, as you can tell, minimal effort. The thrusts Very pointed, very small. That's a through and through. Slight disruption. And on the side. Again. Through and through. Clear cut through on the reinforced grab. Thrusts all went through, obviously broader. So again, marks. Two through and through with a thrust. Two marks in between C9 and what looks like F2. First thrust was right here, not this one. The knee it's showing. First thrust, second thrust. tear fabric, but nothing underneath. Two-handed thrust point. Single-handed thrust point. Cuts lacerated. Just first layer. Slight second layer. Break. Thrusts. Two through. First layer damage, cloth, cut. Thrust. Through and through, as well as here and here. Abrasion line, slight tear, slight, yeah, nothing. So what you got here, Aaron?
So we're not seeing much penetration with the cuts through the armor, but I'm wondering how much of the kinetic energy is transferred through the padded jacket to the target. And so I've placed a branch here to see if I can break it through the padded canvas.
Gotcha.
Padded jacket.
Gotcha. Obviously, maybe not necessarily the same consistency of bone, but again, the concept is, is there trauma that's happening underneath it?
Yes.
Love it, man. No? I bet it.
So far, so good for our wooden friend. Got a crack in it now.
Okay.
Oh God, yeah.
This is the crack that he's talking about right here. And mind you, this is just a tree, and bone's got much more consistency to it. But the point we're looking at here is damage underneath. That's the point. So I'm going to be doing a couple swings here. All I'm doing here, I'm sure all of them will break through at some point, but I'm just exploring here with the Albion Sheriff, a single-handed sword, what kind of power generation I can get there. I'm sure similar concept, blade typology, all these things. And I'll be doing that with the Sheriff and also the Mercenary. Just for some extra footage I'm going to throw in there. Again, we think about swords are really cool, but again, one of the things that Fiore talks about is how when it comes time to end cool combat, I have no equal, and he's talking about the dagger. And I think just for perspective case right here, again, when we talked about before how I see you're coming down with this type of a shot, I'm not even giving an iota of the thrust vector that I did with the swords. The dagger goes right in, and I think that speaks to the direction. Even the Sultani line, it's through. So filming this has been very interesting for me, and I have to admit, I was kind of surprised by some of the results of this. The thrusting mechanisms, when it came down to a modern day SPES jacket, not very surprised at all, and that made a lot of sense to me. Striking against it, however, that was a part that I thought was very surprising to me, as the Albion Sheriff was the only one that really made any meaningful cutting into the SPES jacket, which I thought was kind of fascinating. That was, again, had me consider certain things about, what exactly are we doing with certain types of cuts and blows, and we'll be doing more experiments about that a little bit later on. The other thing, too, that I thought was really amazing was the thrusting on the padded army jacket by Charles Lin. And I was very surprised that the Albion TALHOFFER that I have, which is very pointed, almost like a needle, it's like a leather awl punch, I had the hard time with even getting it in there. And even after all the experiments were done, I kept on stabbing into this thing, trying to see if I could get this thing to go through. I think the furthest I ever got was the tip was able to break through on one of the linen pieces. And again, this is after everything, and this is me doing extreme motions, not just the same static position shots that I was doing for the test. This led me to some very interesting theories on this, and as well as one thing that Aaron had brought up was, if you look at the Albion TALHOFFER and the Albion Mercenary, the Mercenary and the Sheriff both went through the padded jacket provided by Charles Lin. They've stabbed in there. They're thinner profile, and on top of that, they were, even though the Mercenary and the Albion are 15As, the TALHOFFER is, the TALHOFFER and the Mercenary are 15As. The TALHOFFER is a little bit more robust than the Mercenary. The Mercenary is very slender, and it was very easy to get in there. I was very surprised by that, actually. And when it came down to effectiveness of striking against that was a big piece right there about what we're doing, and when it comes down to how thrust may be a different type of a factor. One thing that had brought up on this right here is because the TALHOFFER is so robust and round at its tip point, it really makes a lot more sense that this is much more utilized for the case of armor, like getting into chainmail. You may not be wearing a padded jacket of 31 layers and then having chainmail on top of it. In fact, that might be a little bit excess. So someone that's wearing chainmail, the Albion TALHOFFER makes a lot of sense because it can go in and get through smaller layers of linen, as opposed to things that's a little bit more robust. No evidence on that, but again, as I look at this right here and I explore this as an idea of being caliber driven and not just I'm going to cut everything, it makes me think that you have different tools for the job that I'm very eager to see what else we can find in this. A little bit about why I had the targets I have here as far as a hay barrel, and then also utilizing a softer target on the other side for the cut performance. Body's compressed in certain shots, and one of the things I wanted to do here is I wanted to first explore what happens if I cut something that gives way. There's plenty of footage out there of people cutting into like punching bags and stuff like this right here that have like a piece of like a jacket on the outside of it all. And I think it's an absolute marvelous test. Don't get me wrong here. I wanted to see what's going to happen here because my experience is when someone gets hit, they typically crumple back in different directions. Of course, if they're moving into it, that's a different story, right? And it made me consider a couple things that we look at within the Lichtenauer systems and in Fiore that gave me some other ideas here. So when you talk about the concept of hard and strong and strong and weak within the 5 concepts that Lichtenauer talks about, vor, nach, indes, stark und schwach, it makes a lot of sense here why you'd want to have something that's not weak, because if it's weak, it's going to give way. It gives way to a blow, and so on and so forth. And that makes me think about perhaps one of the things that's said in that tradition, which is the concept of Nachreise, which is fighting in the nach, fighting in the after. Example of someone cutting from above at you, they void out of the way, and then you cut right back at them as the blade is out of the way. Or as they are raising the sword or drawing back the sword, you thrust or cut in appropriately. Part of the reason why it makes me think about this is if I'm catching someone in that position, whether after a blow or as they're getting to set up a blow, knee-jerk reaction response of, oh God, I got to get back to cover myself becomes a thing as a person realizes that they're in danger, right? And for those that understand Lichtenauer, no man defends himself without danger. Well, as they realize that they're in danger, what are they going to try to do? They're going to try to defend themselves. And that's the part right there that I think is very interesting about this. So the reason why Nachreise may be a factor in this is because I'm hunting them to be hard and to come back into it, because if they give way, the sword blow is a lot less effective as opposed to if they're moving into the shot. Just a hypothesis, just a theory, and maybe not be just about timing and try to how we can outpace somebody, but how we can actually effectively cut against somebody who is moving forward and backwards at us at different paces and whatnot. And we have other ideas on how we're going to possibly explore that. Maybe some sword pinyan in the future, who knows. The other thing too is, as I said before, the concept I was saying about blows. All this made me look at a lot of how Fiore describes his strikes in his manual. And he doesn't call them cuts or slices. The only one he calls is specifically is the punta, which is a thrust. But everything else is a blow. And that was very interesting to me. And then I went back into the glossary section of the book, and I found out that there's another term called tagli or taglio. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong. That means to cut or to slice. So this got me thinking that perhaps, again, when we strike at something and we hit it, as you can see, the stick broke. Well, if you hit the person and it breaks into and it cuts into them, great. But the reality is, it's just a blow. Potentially. Again, that's what I'm starting to think on that. No idea, no evidence on that whatsoever, but again, just thoughts on that right there. I'd like to share it, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on them as well regarding that. The other thing too is, and again, I have no evidence of it all, but the fact that in Italian tagli or taglio is a cut or a slice, it makes me wonder if in the poem of the Zettel, when they say don't dismiss the tag hits, is this a poetic nuance? Also said, maybe this is a pun or a play on words for the poem of the Zettel. I don't know, and I can't be certain on that. But that's just something else there to consider on as I continue to go down this pathway of it all. And finally, with this right here, I want to send out special thanks out there. First and foremost, Aaron Brandt, thank you so much for coming out and to being a part of this, coming out. I was able to work with you at your place, and thank you for assisting me with understanding with what you're seeing out there physically within those types of cutting and whatnot. That was a great assistance out there, and thank you also for participating within the experiments that we're running with this. So always love that, and I really appreciate your participation and your assistance within that. The second one I would like to really thank out there as well is Charles Lin. Again, thank you so much for saying the padded arming jacket, Charles. That was very interesting. It's been very interesting to see how this is working and developing. And I really very much so look forward to seeing where this goes in the future, especially as we start to work on other things that come of it. So again, thank you to both of you. I really appreciate all the help and the assistance. To everyone else out there, if you like this, please leave a like below, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts on this. It'd be very interesting to see what people think on this. It's been fascinating for me. So if you could, please, like I said, leave a comment below, leave a like, share with a friend, see what they find. And if you're seeing this for the first time, consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love to see what your thoughts out there if you're new to historical martial arts. And if you're also interested in this right here, please, again, leave a comment below. Who knows what we might all come together as far as looking at some of these things. And with that being the case, everybody, that's going to wrap up this video. Until the next time, please stay safe, train well, fight on, and I will see you all soon.